Hey everybody, welcome to True Crime Freaks, my new podcast. I want to tell you about the different ways you can support this podcast. One is you can go to my other podcast, Lights Camera Pro, where I interview TV and film professionals about their careers. And I also do movie reviews and TV show reviews. You can check out one of my online courses. I've got an Adobe Premiere Basics course and a Secrets of How to Start a Podcast course. Those are at thinkific.com. Just search them when you go there. We also have a merch store. Just search the podcast at teespring.com and check out our hoodies, t-shirts, and mugs. I also have a children's book called Feldman Runs Away, which is on amazon.com. You can always support the podcast by going to Apple or Spotify, wherever you listen, subscribe, rate, and review. This podcast does have graphic content. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks, everybody. She left town without any explanation. She had landed her dream job. She had a teenage son who adored her and a close family. Why would she leave? This is the murder of Cari Farver. This podcast is based on the Dateline episode Scorned, ABC News Go, articles from iowacoldcases.org, newsroom.au, and Wikipedia. Okay, so this is one of the most horrific cases because the person who committed the murder did not do it for any good reason. She also tortured the victim's family for years by texting them and emailing them tens of thousands of messages, making them think that she was alive, or at least that it was possible that she was alive. Dave Krupa was a regular guy. He's a mechanic with a beard, kind of reddish brown hair, but he seems like a really nice guy. He moved to Omaha, Nebraska to manage an auto shop. He met Liz Gollier on an online dating site. They dated for a while, but Dave made it clear he wanted to see other women. Then about 6 months after Dave met Liz, Cari Farver walked into his auto shop. Dave had described her as extremely attractive and that there was a spark between him and Cari. Cari and Dave went on a date and it went well. She went back to his place for dinner and told Dave she didn't want anything serious. Dave really liked that because he didn't want anything serious either. So you can't see any photos on a podcast, but Dave seemed to like Cari more than Liz, and he definitely found her more attractive. But then something strange happened. As Cari left Dave's apartment, Liz came over to pick up some things she had left at Dave's. They didn't speak, they just passed each other in the hallway for a second. But this meeting would definitely change all of their lives forever. Cari and Dave had only been dating a couple of weeks, and they both didn't want anything serious. Cari was working on a large project at her job, and Dave offered that she stay over because his apartment was closer than her house. Her house was about an hour away, and Dave's apartment was about 5 minutes from her work, so she agreed to stay over. Cari asked her mom, Nancy, to watch her son, Max. On November 13th, 2012, Dave left early for work and said he would see Cari later. Later that morning, and this is really weird, remember how Cari said she didn't want anything serious? She sent Dave a text saying that she wanted to move into his place. She wanted to live together. That doesn't make any sense. Why would she send a text like that was so out of character only a few hours after Dave left from work? Dave was just kind of blown away and confused. And he said he wasn't interested in living together. Cari texted back, I hate you. You ruined my life. You're a horrible person. Dave got home that night and Cari was gone. So, does this make sense? It doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand why Dave wouldn't pick up on it and be like, that wasn't her. Who the hell's texting? The Dateline episode doesn't really go into why Dave didn't think that this was possible. He just kind of goes along with it and says, okay, she lost it a little bit, went crazy. I guess we're not dating anymore. And he said he dodged a bullet. But I can't believe that he didn't know or feel like the person texting him was a very different person that he had just left several hours ago. The text actually came only a few hours after he left for work. It doesn't make sense, but hindsight is 2020. When you're in the middle of it, you probably make excuses and reasons why Cari just totally did a 360. Cari's mom, Nancy, said she received a text saying that she had taken a job in Kansas. She didn't believe that it was her. She didn't think Cari would leave her son. Cari had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, but Nancy said she was taking her medication and she was happy. This didn't seem like her at all. Nancy reported her missing when she didn't show up to a family wedding. The police said that people with bipolar disorder can do erratic things, especially when they stop taking their meds. Dave said he was receiving hundreds of harassing text messages. Liz, Dave's ex-girlfriend who passed Cari in the hallway, also said she was receiving harassing messages. And she reported that someone wrote "whore from Dave" on the inside of her garage door in spray paint. Okay, once again, this seems out of character for Cari. She was a mom. She spent a lot of time at work and with her son, and she's going to go over Liz's house and write "whore," even though she was dating Dave and Liz wasn't. That doesn't make much sense. But I do think that her bipolar disorder was an explanation for some people, definitely the police, that this is why this episode was happening. I would not think that, but some people know more than I do. See, Cari's mom said Cari missed many family events in the coming weeks. Cari said she was coming to get her son, she never came, and she would never call on the phone even though her mom pleaded with her. Here is a message that Cari supposedly sent on Facebook so you could kind of see what the messages were like. It says Cari Farver, May 18, 2013 on Facebook. I have answered enough questions to prove myself to everyone. I am done. You can either believe that I am your daughter, mother, sister, and friend that I've known your whole life, or you can just leave me alone. I have proven myself over and over, and I'm done. I left on my own free will, and I'm sick of everyone giving me a hard time for doing what I needed to do. I am not missing. I just don't want to come home right now. I am a grown woman. And if I feel like leaving home, I have the right. I asked my son, Max, to come live with me, but you didn't want to. So when I'm ready to come back home, I will. I'm sorry for hurting everyone and just up and leaving. I know I've upset some of you, but I need to do this for me. Sorry, and I hope some days you can forgive me. I love you all very much, but I need time to still sort things out. This is almost a year, several months after she disappeared. Nobody needs 8 months to sort things out, no matter what their illness is. This is crazy. This is someone else. Okay, so this is some of my evidence of suspicion for being right. I was watching the Dateline episode Scorned and came up with these conclusions and ideas as the episode was playing out. Nancy, Cari's mom, said that the texts from Cari were filled with spelling and grammatical errors, and Cari was a stickler for both. This is not her. Dave was not only being harassed by emails and texts, but he was being stalked. One night, he was sitting in his comfy chair watching TV, and he got a text that said, "I can see you in your chair in your blue shirt with your feet up." Dave noticed a car that looked like Cari's in his apartment complex's parking lot. He took a photo of the license plate and sent it to the police. This is a couple of weeks after Cari disappeared. In the car was a mint container that had a fingerprint that wasn't Cari's. But they didn't know who it was because it wasn't in the national database. So this is really sad, but Max's son, Cari, is convinced it isn't her. So he asks her 3 questions on Facebook, on Cari Farver's Facebook page, to see if it's his mom. And he says, "What is my middle name? What was my first dog's name? And what is my best friend's name?" Cari never responds to these questions. Why? Because it isn't her. In August 2013, Liz Golyar's house caught fire, killing 2 of her dogs. Liz said that she thought Cari did it. Does anyone in this town not know that Cari and Liz never actually met? They walked by each other in a hallway. Cari didn't even know she existed. And if Dave Krupa had even mentioned Liz to Cari, she still hadn't met her. So why would she burn her house down? She knows she has children. Or she would know from Dave that she had children, and she wouldn't burn her house down. She's a mother. This is insane. She has no reason to burn down her house. Somebody had to expect that this was someone else. I know Max and Cari's mom, Nancy, did. Amy Flora, the ex-girlfriend and mom of Dave's 2 children, also got horrible messages from Cari. Cari had no reason to attack Dave's ex. None at all. In the spring of 2015, 2 new detectives picked up the case, Ryan Avis and Jim Doty. One of them worked the case as if Cari was alive, and the other worked the case as if Cari was dead. Jim Doty said that Liz was a person of interest. She was the focus of all this harassment? Why? He's asking the same questions that I was asking. Thank you, Jim. Finally, someone sees the obvious. The detectives asked Anthony Cava, a digital forensics administrator at the sheriff's office, to help out. Both Dave and Liz had agreed in 2013 to let their phones be downloaded. They knew that these messages were probably not coming from Cari. She hadn't spent any money on credit cards from her bank, so they wanted to find out who the imposter was. Okay, this is so crazy. Remember, it's 2015 and Cari disappeared in 2012? Cari sent Dave about 15,000 emails and over 25,000 texts in a 3-year span. The investigators found a photo of Cari's Ford Explorer on Liz's phone that was dated a month before she went missing. So Liz is stalking Cari a month, which is probably because she was stalking Dave and was watching the auto shop, or got word from someone at the auto shop that Dave was flirting with this woman at the auto shop. That's the only explanation for her to have a photo of her car a month before she went missing. She was only dating Dave for 2 weeks. So the detectives asked Liz Golyar for help. They concocted a plan to get Liz for the murder. They asked to download the information on her phone and to look at the messages, and they couldn't believe it, but she agreed. There was a gun missing from Dave's closet. Liz thought that Dave's ex-girlfriend, who he had 2 kids with, Amy Flora, had taken the gun. Then she realized maybe she shouldn't know about the gun. She kind of backtracked. But I just can't believe she's trying to frame this other woman for her crime. I mean, I know she doesn't want to go to jail, but this woman has kids and had nothing to do with her, and she's just dumping this crime on her, maybe because they're starting to think that Cari isn't doing this, or she isn't missing. So she's trying to say, oh, maybe it's this woman. She's doing things that confuse and prolong the investigation. To cover her tracks the next day, Shanna Liz Golyar calls 911 and says she's been shot in the leg while walking on a trail at night. At first, she didn't know who the shooter was, and then she said it was Amy, Dave's ex-girlfriend. Anthony Cava, the computer analyst, said that he found that Liz had made or more fake email addresses. He also found out that Liz was using an app where you could send texts or emails at a later date. Liz and Dave had been dating again because they were both getting harassed, and then somehow they were talking about getting harassed by Cari, and they bonded and they started dating again. So Liz would be over at Dave's apartment, he would be there, and she would get a text from Cari. So Dave thought she had nothing to do with it, but she was using this app that could send messages later on text message and emails to fool Dave. And then Dave would tell the police she was with me when you got the messages. So it was a pretty good plan, but it didn't work. Also remember that Liz had a fire at her house, killing her 2 dogs. She blamed Cari for the fire. But it looks like now that she set the fire and killed her own dogs to try and throw suspicion at someone else about this murder. This woman will stop at nothing to keep her lie going. Shoot herself, burn down houses, blame other people for stealing guns, contact Cari's loved ones and act like she is Cari. It's insane. So the detectives had a plan. They would tell Liz that they believed that Amy Flora, Dave's ex, had shot her. And they asked her to reach out to Flora and see if she would give details about the murder. Liz agreed. The detectives get messages from Amy Flora saying she shot Liz and killed Cari. They're essentially getting Liz to confess to these fake messages that she's sending from Amy. They know that they're fake, and they're getting her to confess to the crime through these messages, and Liz doesn't even know it. Liz is getting very upset that they haven't arrested Amy. The detectives tell her they don't have enough evidence and they need Amy to admit how she killed her in the messages. This is brilliant. This woman is a mother, and she's going to put an innocent mom in jail so she can get away with murder? Wow. This woman. The emails come flying in. How Amy stabbed Cari 3 to 4 times in her car and put her body in a garbage bag. The detectives, this was the first time the detectives figured out that the murder happened in the car, because Liz is basically admitting it. So they do something they've never done before, and they take the covers off the seats in the front of the car, and they find blood stains under the passenger seat and the foam underneath the cover of the seat. So the detectives have Liz come down to the station. They confront her with all the evidence. The blood stains on the seats, Amy's confessions, the emails being tracked to her house. While they interrogated her, they searched her apartment and found some incredible evidence. What seemed to be Cari's digital camera and camcorder, in which Cari talks about, there's some video on the camcorder where she talks about her car being vandalized 2 days before she disappeared. On December 22nd, Shanna Liz Goliar was arrested and charged with first-degree murder of Cari Farver. Before the trial was about to start in 2017, Dave Krupa remembered that he had a tablet in storage and actually had an SD card from Liz's phone around the time of the murder. The photos were deleted, but Anthony Cava was able to recover them. On the SD card, there was a photo of a decomposing woman's foot with a tattoo. The tattoo was a Chinese symbol of the word mother. Cari Farver had the same tattoo. So Liz was taking pictures of Cari's dead body after she killed her and had kept a photo of her foot after she killed her with this tattoo on it to remind herself that she was dead or something, or to enjoy it or something. I don't even know, but it's so insane. In 2017, Shanna Liz Goliar was sentenced to life in prison. Dave Krupa and Nancy, Cari's mom, were grateful to the detectives for solving this case. My girlfriend and I were shocked to find out that Liz killed this woman and destroyed her family after she dated Dave for 2 weeks. She only dated this guy for 2 weeks and she got murdered and her whole life was wiped out by this woman who was jealous. Just date someone else. Really? I mean, Dave didn't want to date anybody exclusively anyway. It wasn't like she was married to him and he stole her, which is still no reason to kill someone, but these weren't extreme consequences. Dave wanted to date a bunch of women, and he did. And this woman, Liz, goes out and kills Cari because she's dating him for 2 weeks. There's no rational explanation for why this woman did this. She just got it into her head like so many murderers do. If I can't have him, no one can. Thanks for listening, guys. See you next week in the next chilling episode of True Crime Freaks, you freaks. Thanks so much. Sean signing off. Hey, everybody. Welcome to True Crime Freaks, my new podcast. I want to tell you about the different ways you can support this podcast. One is you can go to my other podcast, Lights Camera Pro, where I interview TV and film professionals about their careers. And I also do movie reviews and TV show reviews. You can check out one of my online courses. I've got an Adobe Premiere Basics course and a Secrets of How to Start a Podcast course. Those are at thinkific.com. Just search them when you go there. We also have a merch store. Just search the podcast at teespring.com and check out our hoodies, t-shirts, and mugs. I also have a children's book called Feldman Runs Away, which is on Amazon.com. You can always support the podcast by going to Apple or Spotify, wherever you listen, subscribe, rate, and review. This podcast does have graphic content. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks, everybody. Thanks to Joseph McDade for the music. I will see you next time in the next chilling story on True Crime Freaks. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great day. I'm Sean Ventura. Take care.